welcome back to C++ tutorial on Tute Fulcrum. In this session, we'll be discussing about the multi-level inheritance in C++. So let's get started. In multi-level inheritance, a derived class is created from another derived class. Say for example, we have class A and from class A we are creating class B. So class A is the base class for class B and class B is the child class of class A. In multi-level inheritance, we derive one more class from the derived class class B. Let's call it as class C. So here class C is the child class of class B and class B is now the parent or base class for class C. This is multi-level inheritance. Let's take an example, implement and understand this concept. So let's start implementing. Let's first create a base class. So let the student class be our base class and let this class hold the basic or the personal details of a student. So I'm going to add the methods or the attributes as like age, ID, etc. So let it hold the data member's age. I'm going to take it as an integer entity and also ID. Let's stick on to just two entities, right? So this base class student, let's implement the functionalities in such a way that it's going to read the age and ID of a student and it's going to display the same. So let's call our function say get student details and let it read the age and ID of the student. So let's use a cout statement to alert the user to enter the age and ID of the student. So cin will use to read the data. So it's age first, then ID. Now we'll add one more member function to display this age and ID of the student. What's read from the user will now get displayed. So let's add a function. Let's return void and let us call this function as disp student details. Cout, let's say age, and then we'll display ID. Alright, we are done with the base class student. So student base class has two members, age and ID, and functions to read the values to age and ID and also to display the same. Now what we are going to do is we are going to create a child class to the student which is going to add the subject details. So how do we create a child class? The child class name, let's call it as subject, then colon, the mode of inheritance, let's make it as public. Now we have to specify the parent class name, so student. So let's consider two subjects. So I'm going to take the marks of two subjects here. So let's call it as sub1 and sub2. So let the marks be integer for time being. So what this class is going to do is it is going to ask the user to enter the marks for these subjects. So again we'll make use of functions here. So I'm going to make the functions as public, the methods as for public, and I'll write a member function to read the marks of subject 1 and subject 2. So let me call this function as get subject marks. Cout, enter the two subject marks, right? Now I'll use a cin statement to read the same. So sub 1, then sub 2. I'll write one more member function to display these marks. So void disp subject marks. So how do you display? We'll make use of cout statements. Cout sub 1. Then sub 2. Right, we are done with the derived class subject as well. Now what is multi-level inheritance? From this child class subject, we are going to create one more child class. And let's implement that child class as computing the total marks of the subject. And once you create an object to that final child class, I should get the output like the personal details of the student, subject 1 and subject 2 marks, as well as the total marks of the student. So that's the way how we are going to implement our final derived class. So again, class, let's call this as total marks. And then the mode of inheritance, public. Now here we'll specify the parent class name. So which is the parent class here? It is the subject class. This is going to be the parent of the total marks class. So I'll specify here subject. Now I'm not going to add any data members to this class. I'm going to work only with the member functions, and those member functions I'm going to make here as public. So the member function that I'm going to add is, let's call student details disp okay, we have used this name in the first base class, so let's call some other name like what do we write here? Let's call student details displayed. Right, any function name you can use. Now what do we first need? We need to ask the user to enter the name of the student. So I'll call or invoke the get student details function here. Can I do this? Yes, because the parent class of total marks is subject. So all the properties of subject I can use within the total marks. So this subject is a child class of class student. So all the properties of student class I can use within the subject class. So I'll call like here, I'll invoke get student details. Right? Now I need to ask the student to enter the subject marks. So this is direct function of the parent class. So I'll ask get subject marks. Done. So I want to use the subject 1 and subject 2 to the child class. So the access specifier for this, I'm going to make it as protected, so that I have the privilege to utilize these members to the child class as well. So now we need to compute the total marks of the student. So let me use a variable total to take the result of the two subject marks, that is the total of two subjects. So let this hold the result of the same. So let me write total equal to sub 1 plus sub 2. Right? Now what do we need? We need to display all these things. So how do we need to display? So first we will invoke disp student detail function. So this will display the age and ID of the student. Then we need the subject marks. So we will invoke this function. Disp subject marks. So now what do we need? We need the total marks of the student. So who's holding the total marks? The variable total. So we'll use a cout statement and we'll print total marks. Right? We are done. Now in the main, we will instantiate the class by creating an object. So we'll create object to this final derived class. That is, we are going to create object to total marks. So let's say total marks. Let's call the object as obj, and then we will invoke the method of the total marks students, because this is going to give you the complete output as expected. So let me just copy this function name, and through this object, that is obj dot student details display. So we are done with the multi-level inheritance. So let's run the code and see our output. So there are no errors for the code. So it's asking us to enter the age and ID of the student. So let the age be, say, 18, and ID, let's give it as 123. Right? Now it's asking enter the two subject marks. So let's say 80 and then 100. Right? So you could see how it is displaying the details. Age 18, ID 123, subject 1 marks is 80, subject 2 is 100, total marks is 180. Okay, for displaying this ID, we have left this colon. So let's make the cout statement little more prettier so that your output looks fine. Let's just modify that quickly. Just we'll add a colon here, right? Let's rerun once again. Okay, age 18, ID 123, subject marks, let's give a different mark now, 100 and 100. So you see here, age is 18, ID is 123, subject 100, subject 200, subject 2 marks, that's the total marks is 200. So this is about multi-level inheritance in C++. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like, share, comment and subscribe, and please don't forget to tap the bell icon. You'll get notified whenever we upload a new videos. Thank you.